seat.
Okay. So you testified at our field hearing
Yes, sir.
in August 2009 in Baton Rouge, and I appreciate that. So obviously you were in the same role then. Okay. When did the SEC first look into and investigate, either formally or informally, Stanford?
Well, the formal investigation began in October 26, 2006, I'm sorry.
And what about anything informal?
There was an informal inquiry, which is really a term of art at the SEC, that was opened in 2005. I believe it was late 2005.
And that's the first time the SEC looked into and investigated Stanford?
No, but the answer to the question whether it was informal or a formal investigation, given that they're terms of art at the SEC, the formal investigation began October 26, 2006, and the informal in late 2005. I don't know the exact date.
And when was the first look-see at Stanford, that's my term of art, at the SEC?
Okay. As you know, I came into the SEC in 2006. From what I've reviewed, they looked at the SEC was looking at Stanford back in 1997.
1997?
Yes.
And what would you describe that activity as?
It was my understanding that there were, the examination program does periodic exams of various firms in the region. And Stanford, they did 4 examinations between 1997 and 2006.
And that's not an investigation in any way, even informal?
No, sir.
Okay. And the name of that division is what?
The name of the examination, they're called the exam OC.
Which stands for what?
Office of Compliance in Examinations. I'm sorry.
It's Office of Compliance Inspections and Examinations, but they don't investigate in any way.
No, sir. I mean, they inspect and they examine books and records of different firms. You know, so yes, no, they do not investigate like
they make
the enforcement.
recommendations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The reason I'm asking, and I know you're aware of this, is I asked you about this in Baton Rouge.
Yes. Yes, you
in
did.
August 2009. But apparently I didn't lawyer up enough when I asked the question. I asked, when did the SEC formally begin an investigation of Stanford and exactly what provoked that? You responded, quote, we began the formal investigation there was an informal investigation that began in 2004. Then the formal investigation. That is where we asked for authority to issue subpoena, was in 2000, the end of 2005, early 2006. Were you aware at the time that significant activity, inspection activity, happened well prior to that?
Yes, I was aware at the time that significant inspection activity had happened. I was truthfully and candidly answering your question as to when the informal and then formal investigation began and what provoked it. I noted in my answer that several things provoked the formal investigation, including the tips and complaints. That said, sir, if my answer created any confusion for you or your staff, I sincerely apologize.
Well, in your testimony, you also said, quote, I think in total we had about 4 tips or complaints. Some were anonymous that were questioning the legality of Stanford International Bank. We followed up on all of those tips, and then that led to our informal and then our formal investigation, close quote. That summary seems to leave out something pretty significant, because you just didn't have tips and complaints from the outside. You had instance after instance after instance of your own enforcement, what's the name of the division?
Examination group.
Examination division saying, this is a big problem. Is there any particular reason you didn't put that in the summary? That's a lot different than an outside, uncertain, anonymous tip.
As I told you, Senator, in 2009, there were several things that provoked the investigation, the informal and formal investigation of Stanford in 2006. Some of those